The digital clock on the nightstand glowed, red in the darkness, 3:33 a.m. For the 15th consecutive night in a row. Sarah Thompson jolted awake to the now familiar sound of paws scratching against hardwood floors and the soft, urgent whimper of their beloved golden retriever. Max, the 3-year-old dog, was padding through the hallway with determined purpose, his golden coat barely visible in the dim light filtering through the windows from the street lamps outside. Sarah rubbed her eyes and listened as Max's claws clicked against the floor, moving toward 8-year-old Tommy's bedroom. Then came the familiar sound that had been disturbing their sleep for weeks, Max squeezing himself under Tommy's twin bed, his large frame barely fitting in the narrow space between the mattress and the floor. "Not again," Sarah whispered, glancing at her husband David, who was somehow still sleeping soundly beside her. She slipped out of bed, her bare feet silent on the cold floor, as she made her way down the hallway to investigate. Tommy's door was slightly ajar, and through the gap, Sarah could see Max's tail protruding from under the bed, the tip twitching nervously. The dog had positioned himself directly beneath where Tommy slept, his breathing quick and shallow, as if he was standing guard against some invisible threat. "Max," Sarah whispered softly, crouching down to peer under the bed. The dog's brown eyes met hers in the darkness, reflecting a strange intensity she had never seen before. His usual friendly demeanor was replaced by something almost protective, almost fearful. "Come on, boy," she coaxed quietly. "Let's not wake Tommy." But Max refused to budge. He pressed himself closer to the floor, his body rigid with tension, as if moving away from that exact spot would put Tommy in mortal danger. Sarah had tried this same routine every night for 2 weeks, and the result was always the same. Max would remain under Tommy's bed until dawn, emerging only when the first rays of sunlight crept through the bedroom window. The Thompson family had rescued Max from a local animal shelter 2 years earlier, shortly after they moved to their comfortable suburban home in Denver, Colorado. The dog had been the absolutely perfect addition to their growing family, gentle and patient with Tommy, protective but never aggressive toward strangers, and intelligent enough to learn complex commands quickly and efficiently. Till exactly 3 weeks ago, Max had slept peacefully and contentedly in his comfortable bed in the living room, never once showing any signs of unusual or concerning behavior patterns. The nightly 3:33 a.m. ritual had begun suddenly and without warning. Sarah had initially assumed Max was having nightmares or adjusting to some change in the household routine. But as the behavior persisted, she began to worry that something more serious was happening. "Maybe he's sick," David suggested the next morning over coffee, watching as Max sat by Tommy's chair during breakfast, his eyes never leaving the boy. "Dogs can develop anxiety disorders just like people." Tommy, blissfully unaware of the nightly drama occurring in his bedroom, munched on his cereal while Max maintained his vigil. The 8-year-old had always been a sound sleeper, and Max's presence under his bed hadn't disturbed him once. "He doesn't seem sick during the day," Sarah observed. "He eats normally, plays in the backyard, responds to commands. It's only at night that he acts strange." Dr. Rebecca Martinez, their veterinarian, examined Max thoroughly the following week. The golden retriever sat calmly on the examination table, his tail wagging as Dr. Martinez checked his heart rate, temperature, and reflexes. Blood tests revealed nothing unusual, and there were no signs of physical discomfort or illness. "Has there been any change in your household routine?" Dr. Martinez asked. "New furniture, different cleaning products, construction in the neighborhood?" Sarah and David exchanged glances. "Nothing we can think of," Sarah replied. "The only thing that's different is Max's behavior." Dr. Martinez prescribed a mild sedative to help Max sleep through the night. But even with the medication, the dog continued his 3:33 a.m. journey to Tommy's bedroom. If anything, the sedative seemed to make Max more agitated when he couldn't perform his nightly ritual. "It's like he has a job to do," Sarah told his sister during a phone call one afternoon. "Every night, same time, same behavior. He's protecting Tommy from something. But I can't figure out what." The answer came 3 weeks later in the most terrifying way possible. Sarah was awakened not by the usual sound of Max's paws on the floor, but by an unusual silence. She glanced at the clock. 3:33 a.m. The red digits seemed to mock her as she realized that for the first time in weeks, Max hadn't made his nightly journey. Concerned, she slipped out of bed and padded down the hallway to check on both Max and Tommy. The dog was standing outside Tommy's bedroom door, whimpering softly and pawing at the wood. His entire body was trembling, and when he saw Sarah, he let out a desperate whine that sent chills down her spine. "What's wrong, boy?" Sarah whispered, reaching for Tommy's doorknob dot inside the bedroom. Tommy was having what appeared to be a nightmare. His small body was covered in sweat, and he was moaning softly in his sleep. But as Sarah approached his bed, she realized this wasn't a typical bad dream. Tommy's skin was pale and clammy, his breathing was shallow and rapid, and when she touched his forehead, it felt cold despite the perspiration. "David?" Sarah called out, her voice sharp with panic. "Something's wrong with Tommy." David rushed into the room, immediately recognizing the severity of the situation. Tommy's eyes were fluttering beneath his closed lids, and his body was beginning to show signs of distress that neither parent had seen before. "Call 911, David said grimly, scooping Tommy into his arms. The boy was unresponsive, his body limp and his skin growing paler by the minute. The paramedics arrived within exactly 8 minutes of the emergency call, their life-saving equipment and medical supplies quickly filling Tommy's small bedroom. Max watched intently from the doorway, no longer trembling with anxiety but remaining alert and completely focused. As if his persistent nightly vigil had finally served its critical purpose and his young charge was now incapable. "Professional hands, how long has he been like this?" one of the paramedics asked while checking Tommy's vital signs. "We just found him a few minutes ago," Sarah replied, her voice shaking. "He was sleeping, but something seemed wrong." The paramedic frowned as he read the glucose meter he'd pressed to Tommy's fingertip. "His blood sugar is critically low. We need to get him to the hospital immediately." During the ambulance ride to Denver Children's Hospital, Tommy remained unconscious while paramedics administered glucose through an IV line. Sarah held his small hand, trying to process what was happening. Her active, healthy 8-year-old son was having a medical emergency she didn't understand. "Has he been diagnosed with diabetes?" the paramedic asked. "No," Sarah replied. "He's never had any health problems." At the hospital, Dr. Lisa Chen, a pediatric endocrinologist, ran comprehensive tests while Tommy slowly regained consciousness. The glucose had stabilized his condition, but Dr. Chan's expression remained serious as she reviewed the results. "Tommy has type 1 diabetes," she explained to Sarah and David. "His pancreas isn't producing enough insulin to regulate his blood sugar levels. What happened tonight was a severe hypoglycemic episode. His blood sugar dropped to life-threatening levels while he slept." Sarah felt the world spinning around her. "But he's been fine. No symptoms, no problems eating or drinking. Type 1 diabetes can develop gradually," Dr. Chan explained. "Children often don't show obvious symptoms until the condition becomes severe. The nighttime hypoglycemia you witnessed tonight could have been fatal if it had gone undetected much longer." As Dr. Chen continued explaining Tommy's condition and treatment plan, a realization began to dawn on Sarah. She thought about Max's behavior over the past 3 weeks. His nightly vigil under Tommy's bed, his refusal to leave his post until morning. "Doctor," Sarah said slowly, "is it possible that our dog somehow sensed Tommy's condition before we knew about it?" Dr. Chan paused, considering the question carefully. "There's actually significant research suggesting that some dogs can detect changes in human blood chemistry. They might be able to smell ketones or other compounds associated with blood sugar fluctuations. It's not uncommon for diabetic alert dogs to sense hypoglycemic episodes before they become severe." The pieces fell into place with startling clarity. Max hadn't been having nightmares or developing anxiety. He had been monitoring Tommy's blood sugar levels, positioning himself as close as possible to the boy during the most dangerous hours of the night when hypoglycemia was most likely to occur. "He knew," Sarah whispered. Max knew Tommy was sick before any of us did. Over the following days, as Tommy learned to manage his diabetes with insulin injections and blood sugar monitoring, Max's behavior gradually returned to normal. The dog no longer felt compelled to spend his nights under Tommy's bed. But he remained more attentive to the boy than before, often sitting nearby during meal times and following him more closely around the house. Dr. Martinez was fascinated when Sarah called to update her on Tommy's diagnosis and Max's role in detecting the condition. "This explains everything," she said. Max was essentially acting as an untrained medical alert dog. His natural instincts told him that Tommy was in danger during those nighttime hours. The experience transformed the Thompson family's understanding of their pet. Max wasn't just a beloved companion. He was a guardian whose extraordinary senses had literally saved Tommy's life. Without Max's persistent nightly vigil, Tommy's hypoglycemic episodes might have gone undetected until it was too late. Tommy, now managing his diabetes with the resilience that children often display, developed an even stronger bond with Max. He understood, in his 8-year-old way, that his dog had been protecting him from something dangerous. "Max is my hero," Tommy told his classmates when he returned to school, explaining why he now had to check his blood sugar and take insulin shots. "He knew I was sick before the doctors did." The story of Max's medical detection abilities spread through their Denver neighborhood and eventually reached the local news. The Thompson family was featured in a segment about diabetic alert dogs and the remarkable ability of canines to detect medical conditions in their human companions. Dr. Chen incorporated Tommy's story into her educational presentations about type 1 diabetes in children. "Animals often perceive things we miss," she would tell parents. "Pay attention to unusual behavior in your pets. They might be trying to tell you something important about your child's health." Sarah started a blog documenting Tommy's journey with diabetes and Max's role as his unofficial medical alert dog. She connected with other families whose pets had detected various health conditions, from seizures to cancer, often before medical professionals could identify the problems. The experience also led the Thompson family to actively support local and national organizations that train professional medical alert dogs for diabetic children and adults. They learned through extensive research that dogs, like Max, could be professionally trained to recognize specific scents associated with dangerous blood sugar fluctuations and alert families before potentially life-threatening episodes occurred in their loved ones. Max never again displayed the urgent 3:33 a.m. behavior that had characterized those frightening weeks. Tommy's insulin regimen kept his blood sugar stable, and the dog seemed to understand that the immediate danger had passed. However, Max remained watchful, occasionally positioning himself near Tommy during times when the boy's blood sugar readings were less than optimal. The veterinarian recommended keeping Max's natural alert abilities sharp by occasionally allowing him to smell Tommy's glucose testing strips, reinforcing the connection between the scent and the need for attention. While Max would never replace proper medical monitoring, his instincts continued to serve as an additional layer of protection for Tommy. Months later, Tommy's diabetes was well controlled, and he had learned to manage his condition with the matter-of-fact acceptance that children bring to new realities. He carried his glucose meter and insulin supplies in a special backpack, and his teachers and friends understood his need for regular blood sugar checks. Max had returned to sleeping peacefully in his comfortable bed in the living room, but the entire family noticed that he maintained a subtle, yet constant awareness of Tommy's medical condition and overall health. The devoted dog would sometimes approach the boy during specific times when Tommy felt off, or when his blood sugar readings and medical monitoring indicated potential problems that required immediate attention. "It's like having a furry medical assistant," Sarah would joke, but she meant it sincerely. Max's early detection had not only saved Tommy's life but had also given the family time to learn about and adapt to diabetes management before a crisis could occur. The bond between Tommy and Max deepened far beyond typical pet-owner relationships, creating an unbreakable connection forged through shared vulnerability and protection. Tommy understood completely that Max had protected him during those vulnerable nighttime moments when he couldn't protect himself from the invisible medical threat. The loyal dog had stood steadfast guard over his peaceful sleep, ensuring that dangerous medical episodes wouldn't go unnoticed by the family. Today, Tommy thrives as a healthy, active, and confident child who happens to have diabetes but doesn't let it define or limit his daily activities and aspirations. Max continues to be his faithful and very devoted companion, no longer needing to maintain those urgent nightly vigils but remaining constantly alert to his young friend's overall well-being and health status. Their remarkable story serves as a powerful testament to the extraordinary and often underestimated capabilities of our canine companions and their incredible ability to detect serious medical conditions that might otherwise go completely unnoticed until it becomes far too late to intervene effectively.